Hey, listeners, I just have this desperate, I was going to say I have a foot thing. I don't want to say I have a foot thing.
No, that's weird.
The thing about feet that I have is that second toes need to be longer. Otherwise, you're shaped wrong. Not all of my children have longer second toes, so I won't tell you which ones I love and which ones I don't. No, but I just need to know, can we get in the Facebook group and can you tell me which one is your longest toe?
Yeah, let's do this.
I need to know. This is our poll. Welcome to Crime Crazy, the weekly true crime podcast with Aaron Plime.
And Diana Seacon.
Where we prove
that we know nothing about our legal system.
But we're still crazy for a good true crime story.
Yeah, we are. So, Aaron, did you learn anything this week?
I did. So, Sophia's birthday is coming up.
Yay!
Really soon. And we are doing, so her animal is an elephant. Like all my kids have animals. Hers is the elephant. I was really uninspired, and so I decided. And so we're doing elephants, and I told my mom and sister we were doing elephants, and of course my mom's smartass response was, I said, I think we're doing elephants for Sophie's birthday party. This is all over text on the bus the other morning. She says, you're going to rent an elephant for Sophie's party? Awesome. She said, make it a baby elephant in a wading pool. And she sent me the video of the baby elephant in the wading pool, of course. I said, if only. I asked if she wanted me to rent her a goat. She was not pleased. Morgan says, please. My mom says, I'll chip in.
Yeah, I'd be on that.
So you can rent an elephant for an event. It is $6,500.
I will give you all of my money to make this happen.
So you can, I don't know if there are any local. I didn't find any local that were, or like even remotely local, like within the state.
I don't think we have any elephants in the state. I am fairly certain that even in the zoos, we do not have elephants.
Yeah. So I looked into that because I thought, well, actually we could like go to a zoo with an elephant. And, but no, I couldn't find any elephants. My mom and sister decided that was way too expensive. And
I'm telling you, Peg and Morgan, I will chip in.
Well, so my mom says, oh, Morgan says, how much to purchase? My mom says, I'll chip in for a purchase. So if you would like to buy an elephant, an adult elephant, it is closer to $34,000.
Oh.
But they are legal to own if you are zoned for an elephant and you have the appropriate licensing. You can own an elephant. And I was reading on the internet where they were talking about like how do you get like convince the government that you need to have an elephant. And so of course if you're like a wildlife sanctuary or a zoo or something like that, you can. Certain kinds of like trainers, and you could have a business that has you know, exotic licenses. Religious purposes is the other reason that you can apparently convince the government that you need an elephant.
I'm going to find that religion. I'm going to believe in it.
I don't know that Minnesota has any areas zoned for elephants. Nevada is very loose on their exotics laws. So if you wanted to move to Nevada, you could potentially own all kinds of animals.
So problem with that, I do not want to live in Nevada.
No, it is hot and dry.
Yes.
And there's Vegas there, and I was not very thrilled.
You can avoid Vegas.
True.
But the hot and dry is the situation.
Yes. So the rest of the thing I learned about elephants and buying elephants is that it is cheaper, like significantly, like almost half to buy a calf instead of an adult, which struck me as backwards, right? Because if I'm going to go out and adopt a dog, generally speaking, a puppy costs more than an older dog. And so I was talking to one of our office managers about this, or I guess what's the title?
I don't know what we call him, but he's awesome.
He's amazing. And so we were talking about this at work. And I said, I just think that seems backwards. Like with children, if you adopt an older child, like usually you get a stipend. So essentially they pay you to take an older child. But if you want to adopt a baby, it's tens of thousands of dollars to adopt a baby. Right. And he says... I guess that makes sense. You usually pay more for something that's new instead of you. So that's what I learned this week.
Are you going to start telling Tyler that you got him used?
Used, yeah. Like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, I get it.
That's pretty funny. So,
Diana, do you have anything that you learned this week?
I do. Actually, it's so y'all may have noticed that I've had a string of stories, and this was, by the way, totally unintentional, about people that went missing, and everybody was like, "Well, just went back to the drugs," or
right?
You know, oh, he hates us now.
Super, super depressing. Like, call your people.
Call your people. I want to tell you a little bit about why that's important.
Okay.
I'm going to be a little vague here because I want to protect people's privacy.
Uh-huh.
But we had a death in the family, in my family, in the last week or so. And the person that passed away was almost a prime candidate for a Call Your People story.
Yeah.
He's, 59, not a savvy user of technology, i.e. no internet in the house, flip phone.
Oh my God, I couldn't live like that.
No. Self-employed, so not a specific place to show up every day at 9:00. Has relatives in the area, but not super close. Mm-hmm. He's a prime candidate for, going missing and people not noticing for a while.
Right.
But the thing about this person was, whether deliberate or not, he had set up systems in place. So, as a self-employed individual, obviously he doesn't show up somewhere every day at 9:00.
Right.
So that's kind of out. Like,
right.
He was not only self-employed, but he was self-employed as like a contractor that you would hire, and they're notoriously flaky, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So even if they don't show up for a couple days, you kind of figure like, well, some better job came along or whatever.
It rained. It didn't rain.
Right. Yeah. It didn't
hot.
fucking feel like it. He lived alone, did not have a significant other. But one thing he did every single day is he called his brother, who was also a bachelor living alone. And every single Saturday morning, he went and had breakfast with his mom at the nursing home.
Oh.
And the day he passed away, he was supposed to have lunch with a friend, but called to cancel because he had to have some emergency dental work. Legit. Like, that happens.
Yeah.
But, he had lunches set up this week with people that he was going to get together with because his death was unexpected. So what ended up happening, as far as we can tell, is he came home from whatever he was doing on Friday, possibly because he didn't feel well, because his neighbors also had great relationships with all of his neighbors who knew his habits, and he knew theirs. So he came home in the middle of the day. The neighbors noticed because that was unusual because it's largely older retired people that live in his neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So they noticed that. And they noticed his truck didn't leave again.
Right.
But, again, sometimes, that,
I'm
that
having
can
a
be,
day off.
Right.
Or
that can
I
be
have
excusable
a flu,
behavior.
or
right. Yeah. It was a beautiful week. I didn't want to.
Yeah.
But so they noticed that behavior. He didn't call his brother that day, which again,
right.
sometimes that happens.
Right.
He didn't show up for breakfast with his mom. And that's when the alarm was raised.
Yeah.
And a wellness check was initiated, and he was found to have passed away at home. Mm-hmm. We would not have known about his passing if he didn't have this network and this routine. And when he did not follow his normal routine, that somebody who noticed did something.
Right.
Because, again, he was a prime candidate to be one of those people that's like, wow, we haven't seen him in like a year. Wonder whatever happened to him.
Right.
But because he missed 2 engagements that he always has.
Right.
And people know that those are things that are important to him. They called the police. There is nothing that could have been done to prevent his death.
Right.
If he lived with 12 people, like it was sudden, it was massive, it was done.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's how I would like to go. I think.
Absolutely. Oh, 100%.
I was at work earlier today. It was fine. I'm just dead. Like, that's it.
Right. I mean, we think he came home, had a shower, laid down, and it was over.
Yeah.
That is 100% the way I want to go.
Yeah.
But it could have been ages before we knew, and it wasn't, because
Yeah.
He called his people, and his people stepped up
Yeah.
when his behavior was unexpected. So
be proactive, even if you are the people.
Well, and even if you are the people, again, if you see people behaving or not behaving in unexpected ways, I think about that lady, I think it was the first story, who this church community had taken her in and given her housing and helped her with her child and all of these things. And then when she disappeared from social media, that was another thing he didn't have because, again, no internet and flip phone.
Yeah.
But when she disappeared from social media, when she wasn't showing up for church, when she doesn't doing any of those things, instead of doing what my relative did and raise the alarm, her entire church community was like, must have gone back to the drugs.
Right.
And she hadn't gone back to the drugs. She was fucking dead in the backyard.
Yeah.
So call your people when they're not behaving appropriately. Or I don't want to say appropriately. That's judgy.
Well,
but when they're not behaving
Normally.
as expected. Because I don't think anybody is ever going to be mad when you call and be like, hey, I haven't heard from you in a while. Is stuff okay?
Right. I was thinking about you.
Right.
Doing all right?
Right. So call your people.
Yes.
Call your people.
That is a downer. I know you're saying you're supposed to, but it's also like really nice. Like
it
ultimately he still is gone, and that's sad. And,
right.
But it sounds like he did things right, and his family did things right.
Yep.
And
yeah. I also think it was weirdly ironic that after I've gone on like a 3-week rant of call your people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That this is what happened in my own family.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm going to have follow-up on that because I have learned some other things that are relevant to our interests throughout this whole situation, but that is all still unfolding, so I'm going to wait.
Yes, absolutely.
Wait until I know more.
Yeah.
So call your people.
Always a good thing.
Call your people.
So, Diana, do you have a story for us this week?
I do have a story.
I am ready.
All right.
I don't know anything about this story. I've not been teased by this story. I've not had to close my ears and sing la 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 while you told other people the story while I was in the room. I haven't heard that your husband or your son said anything interesting.
I don't think I told anybody because I put it together last week and then we were both sick. And
oh my God, that was rough.
Yeah. It's been a rough week. Well, and funnily enough, I came back from Chicago like 4 hours ago. And so another thing I learned is where the 1893 Columbian Exposition was in Chicago, and I walked part of its grounds, and that was super exciting.
And then sat in the nerdy section of the concert.
And then I sat in the nerdy section of a Gaslight Anthem show.
You can't see, but she's like ready to rock out in the podcast room right now.
So here's the thing, you guys. I am 43 years old, and I rocked out so hard last night. I hurt. It's probably going to be too late by the time this drops, but if you ever get the chance to see them live, go do that. It's amazing.
It was a good show.
So good. Worth every bit of the, oh my God, I'm old pain. But yeah, sat next to a high school history teacher, nerded out completely. It is the club we went to was the Riviera in Uptown Chicago, and it is around the corner from the Green Mill, which I did post pictures of. So I got to peek in there.
That's cool.
And that was really cool. We're going to have to go back. There are so many really cool tours in Chicago. We just couldn't make it work out.
Yeah.
With the timing.
We need to do a crime field trip. Like, I can't believe we haven't done that.
I mean, we've been busy.
We have been so busy.
But yeah, we need to settle on a crime field trip because there's actually some achievable stuff.
Well, right.
Distance wise.
Stuff. Well, there's stuff in the cities. Like, we could do that in an afternoon instead of like a weekend.
Yeah, instead of a road trip. Oh, there's so much good stuff around here. So anyway, I was thinking about this weekend since I was actually totally accidentally at the grounds of the 1893 Columbian Exposition.
Yes.
It's funny because my story today is a little bit about architecture.
Oh.
So I'm going to tell you about the Hotel Cecil.
Okay.
The Hotel Cecil, which looks like that.
Nice.
Was constructed in downtown Los Angeles in 1924, and it was designed as a destination for business travelers and tourists. It's designed in the Beaux-Arts style. It had 700 rooms, which seems like a lot of rooms.
So what do you mean it was a destination? Like, is it a a hotel? Is it
It
a
was
conference center?
It was a
Is
hotel.
Okay.
But it was in the 20s, so I don't know that conference centers were much of a thing yet.
Okay.
But the intention was that people would know about that hotel and specifically come to LA to stay in that hotel.
I gotcha. Okay.
It so 700 rooms, and it cost $1 million in the 20s to complete.
For half a second, I thought you were going to say to stay.
No.
Holy shit.
No. Very reasonable to stay by today's standards. It opened in 1927, and it has an opulent, everything I read said opulent, marble lobby with stained glass windows, potted palms, and alabaster statuary. It is gorgeous. If you Google Hotel Cecil, like interior, it's amazing. It's so beautiful.
That's cool.
Yeah. The hotelier that owned the Cecil, William Banks Hanner, was confident that his investment in this hotel would pay off, but it opened in 1927, and there was a bit of a problem in 1929.
Yeah, poor dude.
Yeah. So,
You weren't wrong. It's just wrong.
I know, but so close.
So close.
So close. So, obviously, the Great Depression struck within 5 years. The Cecil stayed open, and it actually had kind of a comeback, and it flourished as a destination again throughout the 1940s.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So in the 50s, that neighborhood began to go downhill, and the hotel went along with it.
Oh.
It's estimated that as many as 10,000 homeless people were within a 4-mile radius of the hotel.
That's a lot of human beings.
That is
10,000 people is a lot of people.
Well, 10,000 homeless
people
without
place to
homes,
stay.
in addition to the people with homes and the shops and it is a lot of people.
Well, because if it was 10,000 people in a neighborhood of 4 miles, right?
Right, 4-mile
worth
radius.
Of houses, like that's fine, whatever. Because you don't see those people, but these are people that don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
It's a big homeless problem.
It was a big homeless problem. And the Hotel Cecil, being in this neighborhood and being kind of down on its luck as well, became known as a residence for transients.
Gotcha. That was what I was going to say, is I know where they could find some rooms.
Well, right. There were 700 of them.
Yeah, which does not hold 10,000 people.
If you really packed them in there, I bet it could.
Maybe.
Nobody's going to get any sleeping.
Yeah. No, I don't know that would be any better than not being in the hotel.
Yeah.
But
no.
you could several thousand of them could stay there relatively comfortably.
Definitely. So while the Cecil is a beautiful building and a very important architectural work, that's obviously not why I'm telling you about it.
This doesn't seem very crime-ish.
Well, let me assure you that there has been, I believe the technical term is a metric fuck ton of crime that is associated with the Cecil.
I'm excited.
Here are some highlights.
Your face. She's so excited.
The first documented suicide at the Cecil was in 1931.
Yeah.
A man named W.K. Norton died in his room after taking poison capsules. So many suicides followed in the 40s and 50s that the hotel became known as the Suicide.
Yikes.
So there's a list on Wikipedia of what they believe to be pretty much all the crimes that are associated with the Cecil. And there are a very significant amount of suicides. And what really surprised me with this is how many people killed themselves with poison.
Yeah.
Because maybe it's because we can get our hands on better pharmaceuticals now, but I feel like people don't kill themselves with poison anymore, or each other.
No, it's true. Well, because you wouldn't kill someone else with poison because it would be very easy.
Not in the 30s necessarily.
No, I'm saying like now. It would be very easy to figure out. I wonder if the concern for, well, A, we have really easy access to things that'll kill you faster.
Mm-hmm.
And B, if I have taken poison and somebody discovers me, then they might save me. Whereas if I put a hole in my head, I mean, I'm still going to take the poison. Like, if I'm going to kill myself, I'm still taking the poison. Let's be real.
Ugh.
But,
I don't know.
But still, I know that hotel suicides that's like one of the number one things, and that California, especially San Francisco, has an unusually high suicide rate in hotels. And that if you are a local who rents a hotel room, then that is a good guess that that's what you're doing,
Yeah.
especially in San Francisco where the hotel rooms are $600 a night.
Right.
And
Not all of them,
just on weird Tuesdays.
right. I knew a girl in high school who rented a hotel room and killed herself a couple years after we graduated. And that was the first time I'd heard of that happening.
Yeah.
And it is a thing. And apparently the thought is they don't want family to find them. They don't want family to deal with the mess.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it won't be associated with their house. Their house won't be damaged in any way. Like it's anonymous. They're not going to get walked in on. Nobody knows they're there. I read a whole article on how to tell if your hotel room has had violence happen in it, like based on what's been replaced and what's been repainted or carpeted and all that. So every time I go to a hotel room, I'm like, okay, let's look.
Let's have a look.
So I did try to tell our boss about that, and she told me in no uncertain terms that I was not to tell her how to tell if somebody had died violently in her hotel room.
Yeah, she spends way too much time in hotels
That's
for that to be cool.
exactly what she said. She's like, no, I don't want to know. But I don't know.
I don't know.
It does not bother me. It would be tragic, but it's not like I'm worried that they're going to haunt me, or if it smelled like someone died, that would be a problem.
I don't know. Sometimes those room fresheners they use.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
In 1947, Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia, was spotted drinking at the bar at the Cecil days before her notorious and still unsolved murder. That is fairly unconfirmed, however.
Okay.
And then...
Also, it's not a crime.
I suppose it's not.
Just drinking at a hotel.
No, but the carving up later on.
Well, yes, that is, but spotted drinking at the hotel bar, not actually criminal activity. Although pretty cool still.
There is a story I've wanted to tell, side note, about something that happened locally, like very locally to me. But the guy was exonerated, so technically no crime.
Interesting.
Yeah. Might have to be a special episode.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, it is a huge crime, but he was found innocent.
Oh, I'm so curious now. This is going to be one that's going to be weeks, like that other one where you're like,
no, I'll tell you. You know about this one.
Oh.
And then there's the serial killers.
I'm ready.
Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, the most epic hair of a serial killer ever. Stayed at the Cecil for a few weeks in 1985 and engaged in part of his killing spree while he was staying there.
I was going to say, again, staying in a hotel, but no, okay,
Yeah.
you're good. You're good this time.
He stayed on the top floor, club level, baby.
Nice.
Paid $14 a night.
Which translates into, do you have any idea?
Oh, I didn't. I forgot to look that up.
What year was it?
1985.
Oh, that's still like...
Still real cheap.
Yeah. All right, so you said $14. 1980.
And he was not what one would call an employed man.
Well, $32.78.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever stayed on a hotel for $32.78.
I don't know that I would stay in a hotel on the top floor at $32.
Top floor, like 17 stories or
I
something.
don't think I'd stay there. Like, can you imagine how sketchy that hotel, like...
Yeah, I can imagine.
It would be really frightening.
He was known for leaving his bloody clothes in the hotel dumpster and walking through the lobby partly undressed.
Well, then, I guess that is cool in a hotel that costs $14.
Well, and imagine again, this is a sketchy hotel. No, like
right.
no
But
two ways
gorgeous,
about it.
Sketchy, right?
Beautiful, but sketchy in a bad neighborhood.
Yeah.
And this guy that comes back regularly covered in blood, dumps the clothes in the dumpster, and wanders back up to his room in his undies. Everybody's like,
Nah.
there goes Richie.
Yeah. At least he took them off outside. I'm not going to have to clean out the sheets.
Hope he can come up with that 32, what was that, 32.58?
Yes.
Australian serial killer Jack Unterweger stayed at the Cecil in 1991, possibly in homage to Ramirez.
Oh.
While he was staying there, he strangled and killed at least 3 sex workers. He was later convicted, it says in Austria, which I'm not sure why, and hung himself shortly after the conviction.
He hanged himself. past tense of hanging is different when you do it to kill yourself or to kill somebody
Is
else.
that what it is? I always thought it was just one of those bad grammar things that snuck into English that I was mad about. I'm going to stop being mad about it then.
Yeah. No, hanged is the appropriate past tense if you do it to somebody and they die. Or you try, like, if that's the intention.
Right, yeah.
Rope around the neck kind of thing.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Oh, I learned. Yes! I learned from you.
What is that supposed to mean? I learned from you. Like, you never did.
You try not to learn things. Or you try not to learn me.
Okay, well then I'm less insulted.
No. Not that I don't have things to learn from Erin.
You're going to learn how to edit here in a second.
That's right. So the hotel is actually no longer known as the Cecil. It's called the Stay on Main. However, the picture I showed you where it says Hotel Cecil on the side, that's a pretty recent picture.
So they've just left it up for like...
Well, it's one of those
history,
painted
or-
on the side. I mean, I don't know that you can actually get rid of it without sandblasting it. It's painted on the side like they did with
Right.
the old style.
But I feel like they should leave it up there just for
Well, right.
historical
They've still
value.
got the neon sign and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what it is. It's been around
Right.
for almost 100 years. So although the hotel had become the Stay on Main by then, I still count this final one.
Okay.
Alyssa Lamb was a Canadian student who was videoed behaving erratically in the hotel's elevator in a possible attempt to hide from someone. Several weeks later, her body was found in the hotel's water tank after visitors complained of weird tasting water and low water pressure.
I know that story. I've seen those videos.
Yeah,
It is trippy. Like,
Yes.
it's weird.
I don't remember hearing this at the time because I remember hearing about it when they found her. That one of the articles I read when I was looking through this, she was bipolar.
Yes.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
So may have been having
Something.
She was very clearly terrified.
She was, but there are enough angles that I wasn't convinced there was actually someone there. Like,
Right.
she wasn't. It was bizarre.
Right. We might have to do a full thing on that.
Yeah,
because
that was a
really
pretty cool
interesting.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, also tragic and horrible, but as all of them are. So.
Yep. I'm not here to tell you about any of those.
Oh.
I want to tell you about the one I hadn't heard of when I was looking through this. The murder of Pigeon Goldie Osgood in 1964. Pigeon Goldie. Pigeon Goldie Osgood earned her nickname because she fed and protected the birds in nearby Pershing Square.
Aww.
She was a retired telephone operator, and she had lived at the Cecil for 6 years.
Oh, wow.
On June 4th, 1964, she was found dead in her room by a hotel worker distributing phone books. Which I bet was more welcome than the 12 people that try to give me phone books every fucking year at my house.
They don't just stick them in your mailbox here?
No, because I catch them and I make them take them with them.
Oh. It's like I've always just gotten phone books and they're so disappointing now. It's not like you could sit on a phone book to see something.
No.
They're like 6 pages long.
I have the internet.
Right?
I don't need your phone book. Take it away.
No.
She had been stabbed, strangled, and raped,
Oh.
and her room was ransacked. Next to her body was the Dodgers cap she always wore and a paper bag of birdseed.
That's so tragic.
A few hours later, a man named Jacques B. Ellinger
Okay.
was spotted working in Pershing Square covered in blood.
Well.
He was arrested, but later released due to lack of evidence.
Oh, yes.
A news article of the time speculated that her murder might have been connected to 2 other murders in the area around the same time, kind of a similar MO from that. That's it.
That's it?
That's it. No other arrests were ever made. As far as I can tell, no one else was ever even questioned about Goldie's murder. The case is cold, and it remains unsolved.
That sucks.
The day after Goldie's body was found, her friends came together in Pershing Square. And one of her friends, Jean Rosenstein, told a reporter, we were all her friends, all of us here at the square. I was just standing here this morning thinking about what had happened when somebody suggested we get some flowers. No one has much money around here, but all of a sudden, everyone started giving me what they could. We just wanted her to know we remembered.
Oh, my God. Diana, this is a sad story.
Yeah. Lots of bad things happened at the Cecil, but at least one good thing happened. In 1987, U2 performed an impromptu concert on the rooftop of a building nearby. That performance, with the Cecil in the background, was released as the music video for the song Where the Streets Have No Name.
Oh, cool.
These days, the Cecil is called the Stay on Main. It's run by the Simon Barron Development Company. They have a 99-year lease on the property, and they're committed to the preservation of the architecturally or historically significant components of the building. In February 2017, the LA City Council deemed the Cecil a historic cultural monument, and it's currently being renovated into a mix of hotel rooms and residential units.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Do you think there are lots of buildings? I've never heard of a hotel/apartment complex.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Well, and even kind of back in its heyday, that's what it was. I mean, Goldie lived there for 6 years.
Right. I worked out her rent is like $500 a month.
Now?
Or $400 and something a month. No, I mean, that was based on the, $425, based on if it was $14 a night.
And it would have been less
been
because
less.
it was 1964, and hopefully she got like a volume discount.
Yeah.
Like a weekly rate or something.
Right.
So yeah, I think there are a lot of those. Even where
I mean, there are like the hotels where you stay for a couple of weeks, but I feel like that's different than
no.
Does that count as a residence?
Yeah, because I don't know if it's still true anymore, but like people used to live at like the Waldorf Astoria. There was a hotel. God, I don't remember where it was that I was at a couple of years ago. I want to say San Francisco, just because I've been there so much over the last few years, that had like apartments, and it's kind of the best of both worlds. Like, you get full maid service, like they come in and they treat it like a hotel room, but it's yours.
Right.
And also, I mean, you're paying through the nose for it.
I was going to say it's really expensive. Then.
It is when you're doing those kinds of hotels, but something like the Cecil, which is really it was really a homeless shelter.
Yeah.
For a lot of it that,
right.
People could hopefully scrape together $14 a day.
Right.
When you're out murdering people in the streets of Los Angeles.
Yeah. Or being murdered in your hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Well, okay, so most of that was really fascinating, and then part of it was just sad and a little bit I'm a little surprised you told me a heartwarming story there. Flowers and...
That really struck with me. I was really... I researched for hours to try to find more about Goldie, about what happened with her investigation, and there's nothing. Considering this building was already fairly notorious... it was in the LA paper. Her murder was in the LA paper. And it sounded like these folks in the square were also, similarly, I don't want to say transient, 'cause she wasn't. I mean, she'd had a job until she retired. She lived in the same place, but clearly not well off enough to, have her own little home or apartment or whatever. Right. And just that last line has really stuck with me. We just wanted her to know that we remembered. And I kind of wanted to put that out in the world this week for my sanity. Yeah. We remember Goldie too. Yeah.
Aw. Well.
I told you I was going to be a bummer today.
No kidding. What on earth? I thought you just went out and had fun and like.
So if you want to see some pretty great footage, in 87 the neighborhood was still not great. I think it's still not amazing, but much better. But yeah, they got some pretty cool shots of the outside. They were on a 1-story building next to the Cecil. The band was up top. And so the official video for Where the Streets Have No Name, I watched because, I haven't watched that since MTV still played music, and that was a day or two ago. I didn't know about the Cecil back then.
Right. And I have seen the video of whatever her name is, the girl in the elevator and hiding out. But I had not heard of the Cecil. It's even more interesting that it's like such a notorious and interesting historical, not just some random hotel that she was in.
No, it was. And I remember hearing that at the time, that it had a reputation, and they always mention Richard Ramirez, but there was more to it.
Interesting. Mm. Well, that's very cool. That was kind of a different... it ended with a murder and a rape, and that's not so different, but that was sort of a different kind of...
Well, I really thought it was going to be more, because it was... it was a listicle that was like 10
Yes.
crazy ass things that happened at the Cecil. And it talked about Pigeon Goldie. I was like, oh, I don't know that one.
Right. Let me find it.
Let me find, you know, these different things and what all happened. And, you know, there's just so many interesting stories that come out of it. And then just nothing.
Yeah.
They just didn't look.
Yeah. No, it doesn't sound like it was much of a priority, which
No.
sucks.
No. And, you know, again, the 60s, even if he was covered in blood, he could have been like, went to the slaughterhouse. I don't know. I don't know why people are covered in blood, but.
Right. I feel like anytime anyone is covered in blood, like you should probably ask some questions.
Right.
So, yeah.
I mean, they did ask questions. They just, I don't know if they asked the right ones.
Right. They huh.
Yeah.
So, Diana, I have a story for you that
Ooh.
is pretty old because I tend to do more current ones. This one, not so much.
Older than me?
Older than you by a lot.
Like 10, 15 years?
1881.
Holy
So,
balls. That
like
is old.
17 or 18 years older than you. My story takes place in 1881. And it is actually an American story, ultimately, but it begins in a small Bavarian village.
Ooh.
So there is where Hans Schmidt was born. And
Sounds like he brews beer.
he definitely does not brew beer.
Do we know this for sure?
Yeah, we're pretty sure.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. More like, well,
We'll get there.
I have ideas about, he probably, some underground operation that's really unsanitary or something. I'm not really sure.
So don't drink his beer.
Do not drink his beer. Don't drink anything he offers you, especially not things he drinks. So Hans Schmidt, so he actually had it bad from the get-go. He was born to parents who had serious mental illness on both sides. Dad was a Protestant, mom was a Catholic, and they were both like really devout, but I think in a crazy way.
Mixed marriage. Mm-mm.
I know, right? Hans, from a very young age, had 3 things he really loved in life.
Was it peeing the bed, setting things on fire, and torturing animals?
No, and yet we're going to get to some of those. One of them was religion. One of them was sex. He actually was bi, had very little preference. He just wanted sex. The third one was blood.
Oh.
Yeah, so those things, the first 2 on their own, fine. Like, you can still be a decent human being. I mean, you can be a pretty wonderful human being. The blood really kind of throws it off. And
It's
that
a little
seems...
OTO.
Yeah. It seems to be his biggest passion. Well, I don't know, maybe sex. It's real hard to tell. So Hans, as a child... Hans's family friends will tell you that he beheaded 2 of the family geese. So apparently the family kept geese. And not only did he behead them for no reason, it wasn't like he was in charge of getting them ready for dinner. He just beheaded them. I mean, maybe they ate them. I don't know. He carried their heads around in his pocket for some time afterward.
Like with the meat still on?
Yeah, just their heads.
Ew.
Right?
Also, to quote my great aunt Gina, I know who doesn't do laundry in that family.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing he liked to do as a young man is hang out at the slaughterhouse and watch the animals be killed. So right there, red flags all over the place. Okay. So in 1905, he had for some amount of time been working in a school and teaching. And he was arrested because he was forging diplomas for failing students. So if you couldn't hack it and you couldn't get your diploma, you just go to Hans Schmidt. He signs you off anyway.
That is not what I expected.
No,
Not where I expected that to go.
not at all. I have some thoughts about what he was getting paid.
Oh, yeah, I suppose.
So that happened and he was arrested and the prosecutor wanted to prosecute him. This was a big deal. He wanted him to go to jail for it. Dad hired a lawyer The lawyer got him off on a mental defect defense, and he served no time.
So the defense was he is either too crazy or too stupid
To go to jail, to stand trial.
To stand trial, but he was okay to teach the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty.
Yeah, no, okay. Here it keeps going. So after that experience, he decided, you know what? I really like teaching, really like being in charge of people. Obviously, I am a smart dude and important and special, so he became a priest. So in
Man.
I know. In 1904, he claimed that he was ordained by Bishop Kirstein. Now, there are some different stories here. He, from that point on in his life, claimed that that's how it happened. However, there was one version that he told, which was, well, yes, I was ordained by him, but it was a private thing. There were no witnesses, like it was behind closed doors, whatever, which is kind of bizarre. Mm-hmm. But apparently the reason that he told both of those stories is because what he claims is the truth is that one night, while he was all alone, Saint Elizabeth appeared before him and ordained him a priest.
I am not a Bibleologist, but my understanding, like the original Saint Elizabeth or like a later Saint Elizabeth?
Well, it was not specified, but I'm going to guess that he went all in.
Okay. She wasn't a Catholic?
Not so much.
Mm-hmm,
yeah,
mm-hmm.
that would, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of things wrong with this. Also, I'm kind of interested to know, and this has obviously taken place far too long ago for us to ever find out, but I'm interested to know whether he believed that happened, mm-hmm. that he had inherited some sort of genetic issues and then had a really rough childhood. But whether or not he had visions or thought that he did or thought that this had actually happened and so really believed mm-hmm. that, or whether it was like he was just a liar who took advantage of the situation, that his parents made it widely known that he probably had some sort of illness and that, you know, that had worked as a defense for him to get him out of trouble. And
right. Well, it could go either way, really. End result's the same. Believed it, didn't believe it, doesn't really matter.
No, but I feel like I have more, not pity for him, but more understanding of some of his actions. Like they're not justified, and he obviously, I mean, you'll see in a minute, he's a bad person. Mm-hmm. Like regardless of what he did or did not have issues with, he was a bad person. But that he you know, if he really believed that, then he may have gone into this with like really good intentions, and thought that's what he was supposed to do. Whereas if he was just a liar, it is that much worse.
Yep.
So that's the kind of thing I always want to know. And I also think that it's really shitty that people use like a mental defect or a mental illness or whatever defense when that is not the issue, because that just makes it all the much worse for, you know,
for people for whom that is.
Well, exactly. Right. And also makes it seem like a cop-out for those people, or makes it, you know, less legitimate for them, mm-hmm. because people like this, although I don't know. I mean, it's too long ago to have any idea.
Right.
So in true Hans Schmidt style, he went off into the world. He had a couple of different assignments with different churches. His sermons were really eccentric and sometimes just downright bizarre. And eventually he had gone to a number of places, and it became very clear that there would be no more assignments for him. They were not going to send him to another congregation. That was it. He was no longer welcome. So when it became clear that no one in Europe wanted him anymore, he moved to the U.S.
As you do.
Yep. Here, he moved to the U.S. in 1909, bounced around, had lots of assignments, preached lots of strange things. In New York, in 1912, he met Anna, I think that her last name is Mueller. anyway, she was a housekeeper, and she was working at the church that he was at the time.
Alrighty.
And this is where I think that maybe some of his, that it wasn't so much an act, but more that he actually had maybe, I don't know enough about mental illness to say like schizophrenia or whatever,
Right.
but he was having something
wasn't operating
some
properly.
sort of hallucination. Yeah. So when he met Anna, he pursued her. He was told apparently in a vision to love her. And so he pursued her. She was not interested. He continued to pursue her. He eventually wore her down. I have all the feels about that. Diana's speechless. Mm-hmm. So at that same time, he was also in a romantic relationship with a dentist named... Yeah?
Okay, again, not Catholic. Pretty sure that's not cool.
Right. Well, here, Ernest.
Also, dentist, dude. That's like layers of not cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, the dentist was a dude.
That's what I meant.
Oh.
The dude was not an exclamation. It was like...
He was a dude. Yes, he was a dude. Also, not cool, exclamation, dentist.
I mean, yes. But I don't think the Catholics have a specific prohibition against dentists.
Well, no, but definitely against priests in any sort of romantic and physical relationship.
And a homosexual one.
Right. So all kinds of layers of not okay. And I don't know if Anna knew about Ernest or not. But
she knew about the being a priest and all.
She knew about the being a priest and all because she essentially worked for the guy. Mm-hmm. He did not let her say no, essentially, as well, which is gross. The dentist also was a partner in another way. They were counterfeit partners. So he had not gotten out of that game. But, why? He didn't have any consequences for it the first time, so.
Yeah.
Eventually he won Anna over to the point where they got married in a ceremony in which he was the priest. So he was both the officiant and the groom.
I am very perplexed at how this worked.
The whole thing is just bizarre.
Yeah. How do you... Like, did he do the, up here doing the priest thing, back here doing the groom thing? Like...
I don't know.
That also seems like a lot of work.
It does. But I don't know how else you would do it, though, right? Because it's not like he could go to anyone and say, hey, we want to get married. I'm still going to be a priest. Is that cool?
Is that like when my grandpa wanted to use the company car on the weekends? Apparently the policy at his company was that you had to run it past the president of the company if you wanted to use the company car for personal use, which was him.
Nice.
So apparently every Friday night he'd sit down with himself and say, so Doug, I'd like to use the company car for personal use this weekend. All right, Doug, you have a great time.
Right. Yes. Definitely some of that going on.
Right.
I mean, I guess at least in this case, he wasn't married by somebody who he was hallucinating. It was at least a real person.
Well, that is good.
I guess.
Real person that he at least kind of raped and
yeah,
shouldn't, chastity and whatnot.
Yeah, that. So right after he married his new wife that shouldn't have been his wife for many reasons, and I'm not sure whether or not he and dentist Ernest ever broke it off or whether that was still going on or whether she knew about it, he had another vision. This time, he needed to sacrifice.
Oh.
Yes. He had this vision over and over again, apparently, or at least claimed he did. Again, I don't know. And it was so frequent and so upsetting to him, so he says, that he told her that he was having this vision. To which she responded, "You're crazy. You can't do that. You're insane. This is not okay." Mm-hmm. So then there was never any sort of confirmation about this. So it could have just been an attempt to save her own life. But Anna told her husband that she was pregnant with his baby.
Okay.
On September the 2nd, 1913, in an apartment they had rented as a married couple. who were not a priest and the housekeeper that worked in his church, but as these other fictional characters. He slashed her throat. He drank her blood while she was dying. He had sex with her while she died. Then he cut her up and threw pieces of her into the East River. Then he went to work, gave communion, preached a sermon like nothing had happened. And no one knew about their relationship, and no one knew they were living together or any of it. So it wasn't like anyone would have suspected him or noticed that she was gone, which was super tragic. However, not too long after that...
Telegraph your people.
Yes. Write letters to your people. Her torso washed ashore.
But how did they know it was a woman?
I told you that was coming up. They found parts of her in a pillow slip. The pillow slip had a price tag still on it, like a label of some sort. And they were able to trace it to the manufacturer and the store that sold it.
Wow.
So...
that is some good record keeping for 1913.
Right. So all I can imagine is that like somebody there must have been something distinguishing or like a store name or something like that on it. And there just weren't that many places to buy things and everyone knew everyone or whatever. So they get back to the store. It turns out there were just tons of these sold. And they were not like an uncommon or unique thing at all. Like there wasn't a special print or a special whatever. But there had been one whole bedding set sold on the 26th of August of that year. And I guess that was a little uncommon. They were like, you know what, I bet it came from there. And we have the name of the person that bought it. And the name of the person that bought it was A. Van Dyke. And we have his address because they had it delivered.
Okay.
And the address led to the apartment where Anna was killed. So when they got into the apartment, or actually let me step back a little bit. They got to the apartment. They staked it out for 3 days. During that time, no one showed up at all. No one came by. Because, I mean, if you think about it, he had another home. Yeah. She's dead. They were only there as a married couple. So now that she's gone, there's no reason for him to ever return. So the landlord had his name as H. Schmidt. That's who lived there. So he actually gave his real name to the landlord, false name to the company that he bought the pillowcase from, but didn't tell, like the landlord did not know that he was like Father Schmidt or whatever. Right. So after 3 days, no one has showed up. They decide it's worth it to break in. So they break in, and presumably they were let in by the landlord. Right. And what they found was the floor had been recently scrubbed, but not the walls, which were covered in dried blood. Mm-hmm.
Did he think they weren't gonna notice?
I don't know. I mean, I could think of a couple different ways it could have gone down. Like maybe he was scrubbing the floor and it was more work than he thought. And then he was like, you know what, I just won't go back here. Or like maybe no one will ever know.
I feel like I would have made that decision before I put the effort into scrubbing the floor.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like you're all in or you're all out.
Or maybe he intended to get back to it and didn't. And again,
just got busy.
Yeah, he had better things to do. He thought he was going to get it done, but like communion doesn't wait.
Right.
Those people needed their crackers. So they went through the house. There was also a blood-stained knife in the kitchen. So he didn't even clean up the murder weapon. Scrub the floor, not the murder weapon.
Rinse it off, people.
Right. It's very strange, like the things that he chose to do. They found a bunch of men's clothing in the apartment, and all of it, and a bunch of letters. And all the letters, they were addressed to two people. One was A. Van Dyke. So he was receiving some sort of correspondence to his fake name at his address, where he had given his real name to the landlord. Like, I think he really must have had some things going on that he was not thinking clearly ever.
Well, and what's interesting to me, you said he was from Bavaria, right?
Yes.
Van Dyke is a Dutch name.
Yes.
Like, very strongly so.
Yeah. But he did move around a lot. So
it's just interesting.
Yeah, that he wouldn't have chosen something that people would have been like, oh yeah, it's totally your name.
I mean, I say that as a very Irish-looking woman with an Indian last name, but
True. So, the other person that the letters were addressed to, Hans Schmidt. Most of those letters, the overwhelming majority, were from Anna, and they had a return address. So, they went to where the return address was, which was where Anna used to live. And the neighbor said, oh, well, she got this housekeeping job and she moved. And so they went to the church where she had moved to. They went to that church. They said, no, she left. Like whatever, she's no longer here. And so they said, well, okay, do you know a Van Dyke? Like somebody with the first initial A? Well, no, we don't. Okay, well, what about somebody like maybe Hans Schmidt? And they were like, oh, yeah, he was the priest. He also left, actually at the exact same time. So they went to St. Joseph's, where they were told was where they had both relocated. And when they got there, it was middle of the night, and they woke him up. And the moment they woke him up, he like jumped out of bed screaming, I killed her because I loved her. And then gave them all the details.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So, during his first trial, there was a hung jury because one or several of the jury believed that he was insane and that he couldn't be held accountable for his actions, which is probably fair. The second trial, so they retried him, he was convicted of homicide and he was sentenced to the electric chair. And became the first, I'm not sure if only, but definitely the first priest to ever be executed in the United States.
Is this for real, or is it like, it says he's the first, but he was really the third, and it meant the United States, but it was really North America?
Yeah, so...
of and a guy that was of Bavarian descent, but used a Dutch name.
Yes, yeah, pretty much that. So, he has the title of first priest to be executed.
But he wasn't really a priest, maybe.
Well, I don't know. If you're not officially a priest, but you work your entire life as a priest, are you a priest?
That is way more Catholicism than I am.
Well, what if
qualified to talk?
Not officially a teacher, but you work your whole life as a teacher and you teach people? Are you a teacher?
I don't know. Am I a teacher?
Yeah, I think so. You're a trainer, but that's just a teacher.
Right.
It's a teacher who gets to, like, sometimes drink with her students.
I'm also better funded.
Oh, so much better funded. So they did eventually send him to the electric chair. They executed him. The other thing to note with this case is that after they had executed him and they were kind of looking back through everything, there were they looked back through his history. There was another death that they think he actually was responsible for. So at a previous church he had been at, a 9-year-old little girl, Alma Keller, was chopped up and burned.
Ooh.
Her body was burned. They had convicted, sentenced, and I don't think executed, but he had been in prison, and I'm not sure he ever got out, a custodian and janitor that worked there for her murder. But looking back, they're fairly certain that actually that fits this guy much more.
Right.
So, which is super tragic for everyone involved.
Yeah.
And also makes me question, like, what he was getting from those students when he was forging their diplomas, and, you know, what else was going on in all of the churches that he was dismissed from when he was given new assignments and that kind of thing. Like, I think...
So maybe moved around because he was a problem.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and he obviously was a problem.
Well, right.
But, yeah, I think there was probably a lot more in his history and... nothing that was ever dealt with, right? Because they just moved him to a new place. They were like, you know what? This is not working out. You're not good at this job. We question your, you know, everything. So how about you go over there?
Yeah.
How about you don't?
You're right.
Fired.
Yeah.
So, killer priest.
Oh, my.
Also, my journal. There's a cross on this page. and a church and tombstones on this one.
Hold on, we're going to need pictures.
Do you like how the steeple says pregnant?
I didn't notice that.
So that is my story.
That was a good one.
Thanks. I have no idea where I came across it. I had it saved in Pocket forever. And so I was like, that's the one I'm going to do.
Yeah.
We need to execute some priests occasionally. No. But I felt like it was a good day for executing priests.
I think so. I think it was.
I'm not really sure what makes it a good day for executing a priest, but it just feels right.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the gut. Now
I feel a little weird about it.
Well, yeah, but you're a structure. You're not supposed to feel anything.
Oh, that's right. I'll stop.
So, Diana, shout-outs?
Shout-outs! First up, Crime Crazy is supported by M. Gillum and Elizabeth Wilder. Thank you.
Sorry, I was just having this brain fart. We didn't record this part of the episode yet, because that was from the... Not doing just one episode a day, but like doing pieces. I'm having a hard time keeping it. Okay.
We're good.
Okay, so can you do that again and I'll cheer appropriately?
Okay.
Oh, God.
Crime Crazy is sponsored by M. Gillum and Elizabeth Wilder.
Woo!
Yay, thank you.
Two of our favorite people in the whole world, even though I've never met either of you in person, but I think you're awesome.
Show sponsors support Crime Crazy through Patreon at the $10 per month level or above. Thank you.
You are awesome and amazing and wonderful and lovely and delightful.
Yes.
I said that in sort of a boring way, but actually I really do feel those things.
A special thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. If you would like to support Crime Crazy, please check out our Patreon. Go to patreon.com/crimecrazypod or search for Crime Crazy Podcast. All patrons get a monthly shout out on the show.
Woo!
Yay!
Except for those that get way more than monthly shout-outs.
Right.
Because they're the awesomest of the awesome.
It's true. So we just did our whole big shout-out catch-up, and I don't have anybody new to shout out for, but if you would like to receive a shout-out, please rate and review us on iTunes or your podcast catcher of choice. We give shout-outs for all reviews, but we like the 5-star ones the best.
It's true.
You can follow Crime Crazy on Facebook. We're at facebook.com/crimecrazypod. From there, catch up on the conversation by joining the Crime Crazy group. You can follow us on Twitter at CrimeCrazyPod. You can follow us on Instagram at CrimeCrazyPod. You can visit our website at crimecrazypodcast.com or email us at crimecrazypodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. You're at...
Diana, I mess this up every time. I'm at Erin Plime. Oh my God, you've got icons in your notes.
Of course I do. I'm at Diana_Seacon. You can follow us on Instagram. You're at
ePlime.
I'm at classy_broad_MSP.
My Instagram tends to be a lot of pictures of my daughter and my dog.
Yes.
Yeah, but they're both so freaking cute. So, Diana, before we sign off, is there anything that you need to tell our listeners, any advice that you have for them?
I do have some advice.
Do you? You are always a fount of advice and knowledge.
Oh, thanks. So, I was reminded this week of my proudest professional moment.
Oh?
Yes. Because I taught a class a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. It was a kind of a pilot class. I had an audience that was really not receptive to what I was teaching.
Uh-huh. I'm not sure where this is going with proud.
No. This is my proudest professional moment.
Okay.
So, it was a 4-day class. And at the end of the wrap up, I kind of went around and I asked everybody, was this worth your time? Are you going to implement the things that we've learned? And I had a particular student in this class who sat in the back of the room and he was kind of grumpy the whole time and he kind of fought me on all the points and stuff. And we get around to him and he said, well, I have learned that you cannot half-ass this new procedure. I want to put my whole ass in.
Okay.
And I was thinking about it because he is in this thing that we're in this week.
Oh, okay.
And when I saw him, I went over and I said, hey, and he looked at me and said, whole ass.
Nice.
And I'm reminded of that because that cleaning job that your guy did, real half-assed.
Real half-assed.
So if you're going to do something, whole ass, my friends.
Whole ass.
Call your people.
Or telegraph or letter write.
Smoke signals.
Something.
Whatever. And don't end up on next week's episode.